Andrew?
Yes, we're ready to go, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to everybody on this festive occasion at this executive meeting today on the Wednesday, the 23rd of December 2020, the evening, incidentally, that I put out rubbish and recycling. So just to let you know that that's still going on despite the current pandemic, for which I'm very grateful. Not the pandemic, of course, but the recycling collection. Members, thank you very much for your attendance today, and I'll hand straight over to Andrew.
Thank you very much, Leader. Thank you very much, members and officers, and welcome to the executive on the 23rd of December. As the Leader has said, this meeting is being recorded, and a copy of that recording will be made available on the Council's YouTube channel in the next 2 to 3 working days. Just to say that if there are any technical problems, we will adjourn the meeting just to make sure we can re-establish connections, but hopefully we'll be okay with everything today. And just to remind members, if you do need to attract the attention of the Leader, if you could use the chat facility. I know some members do like to use the hand. Sometimes it's not always obvious when you are running the meeting to be able to see that. So if you can use the chat box, that would be really useful. And the meeting today will be as per the agenda published that's been circulated. Thank you very much, and I'll hand over to the Leader now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Andrew. And I should also mark this occasion because this is the last executive meeting that the Chief Executive, Alison, will be with us for. So quite a somber occasion. So thank you for all you've done, Alison, officially, although we'll have a number of times to do that over the next few months, I'm sure, but thank you. Mrs. Christmas is going to leave the building. Right, I'll go round each of the executive members, and if you could just confirm that you can see and hear and are actually present. And I'll start with myself, and I can. Councillor Caswell.
Good evening, good afternoon all. I'm Councillor Mike Caswell. I can clearly hear and see everything.
Thank you. Councillor Duddridge.
Good afternoon, everybody. Councillor Lance Duddridge, and I too can clearly hear and see everything.
Councillor Gilling.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Councillor Gilling.
You're
Is
muted.
there a Councillor Gilling?
Hello. Is that better?
Yeah.
These
Well,
toggle
we
switches.
can hear you.
Good. You can hear me now because I'm Councillor Andrew Gilling. I can a portfolio holder for housing. I can see and clearly hear everybody. I hope it's mutual.
Councillor Mark Healy.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I can clearly see and hear everything, unlike Councillor Gilling, who really does need to start looking at his audio stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Keane.
Good afternoon, everyone. Councillor Janet Keane. I confirm I can see and hear everybody.
Is that all? Oh no, Councillor Slocum.
Oh, thank you, Leader. Thank you. Councillor Jill Slocum, Deputy Leader, Portfolio Holder for Inward Investment and Growth, and I can see and hear everything very clearly. Thank you.
Thank you. And I now go through management team. Chief Exec.
Good afternoon, Leader, members. Yes, Alison Griffin, Chief Executive, and I can see and hear everything perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh no, not Councillor. Mr. Brown.
Good afternoon, everyone. Bob Brown, Strategic Director. I can hear and see everything. Thank you.
Mr. Bamsey.
Good afternoon, Doug Bamsey, Strategic Director. I can confirm I hear and see everything.
Thank you. And we're joined today by Mr. Milton.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jerry Milton, Assistant Director for Customer Access. I can see and hear everybody.
Thank you. We've got Mrs. Turner.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Alison Turner, Assistant Director, Finance and Property, and I can confirm I can see and hear everything.
Thank you. Mr. Hellard.
Thank you, Leader. Good afternoon, everyone. Steve Hellard, Deputy Monitoring Officer, and I confirm that I can see and hear everyone. Thank you.
And Janet Pascoe?
Hi, yes, Janet Pascoe, accountant at Sedgemoor District Council, and I can confirm I can see and hear okay. Thank you.
And we're joined by Tanya as well. Tanya?
Hello, I'm Tanya, and I'm corporate accountant for Sedgemoor District Council, and I can see and hear everybody.
Thank you. And we've got, who else have we got? Mr. Mel Hewish?
Thank you very much, Leader. I'm Andrew Melhewish, Democratic Services, and I can see and hear everything. Thank you.
And do we still have Layla Nicholson with us?
Good afternoon, Leader. Yes, I'm sat here in the back and I can confirm that I can see and hear everybody.
Brilliant. Yeah, backseat driver. Okay, we're joined by two opposition leaders, Councillor Smedley and Councillor Evans. Welcome to you all. Right, without further ado, we'll get on with the agenda proper. Any apologies, please?
No apologies today, Leader.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest?
Yes, Leader, I have. Janet Keane here. There are several, for clarity of, in agenda item number 5, there are several points in that report where I must declare probably a pecuniary interest. On table 5, there is the citizens' advice and under section paragraph 14, 6.1. I am a member of the board of the Citizens' Advice on behalf of this council. In the same paragraph, section 6.5, climate change, where they are asking for an augmentation over and above what they've already agreed. I sit on that board, the cross-county board on behalf of this council. And in an earlier tables, there are mentioned the homes in Sedgemoor. That will be the next one. There's the drainage board, although that is classed as an unavoidable matter. I don't know if the legal opinion would decide that that also is a pecuniary interest. In agenda item number 6, there's the housing revenue account. Both the main report and all of the appendices, I would have a pecuniary interest as a member of the board on behalf of this council. And I think that's it.
Right, thank you. And Mr. Hellard, I'll go to you. Can you just give some advice, please, as to what the process would be as to whether Councillor Keane would need to leave the meeting at any particular point or not? That would be really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, Leader. Thank you. Yeah, so as Councillor Keane said, various interests arising, particularly in relation to item 5, not least of which as a member of the board of the Citizens Advice Bureau. I've given advice that that gives rise to a prejudicial interest that should be declared. Councillor Keane will be required to leave the meeting, not take part in the discussion or the vote for that item of business, although can make a representation before doing so, should she wish to do so, but will need to leave for item 5.
Right, and can I just seek a bit of clarification? We have I think probably a couple of board members of Homes in Sedgemoor here on the housing revenue account. I don't believe that they would need to leave for that, but just declare a personal interest or yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that, Leader. Just a personal interest on the basis that they are members of the Homes in Sedgemoor board, which of course is a wholly owned council company. So yeah.
Well, if I sorry, Leader.
Councillor Doddridge, then.
If I may, then, if Mr. Hellard's happy, I'll declare personal interest on item 6 HRA and the Homes in Sedgemoor growth bids. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Are there any other declarations of interest?
Oh, sorry, I forgot one item also that's mentioned in item number 5, and that is reference to the Somerset Waste Board. they are seeking an increment on their management or our contribution towards it. And again, I sit on that board as a representative of this council. Is that a personal or pecuniary interest?
I suspect that will be a personal interest, but it seems that you have probably excluded yourself from the whole of item 5 because of your personal and prejudicial interest with regard to the Citizens Advice Bureau. I'll take advice from Mr. Hellard just to confirm or not.
Yeah, agree with that, Leader. On the basis that there's a prejudicial interest, the interest is in that item of business, which is the whole item, unfortunately. So, although Councillor Keane has very helpfully disclosed all of those interests, the fact that she's got a personal prejudicial interest arising from her membership of the CAB will disqualify her from that item.
But I'm quite willing to come to you the introduction of the item 5 and allow you to make a representation or speak if you wish before leaving the meeting. Councillor Slocum.
Sorry, Leader, just for clarification, just wanted to check. I also sit on the Heart of the South West Joint Committee Board, which is regarding the budgetary issues, but I don't actually think that would need me to declare. I just wanted to make absolutely certain.
I would say that that's just a personal interest.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Caswell.
Thank you, Leader. I wonder if Andrew Melhuish could send me the agenda again. I appear to have lost it completely from my screen, along with everything else. I've got the pictures back and the voices back, etc., but I've lost all my paperwork. Can you resend the agenda, please?
I'm sure he will.
It's on OneNote.
Yes, we'll do. I'll send the link.
I don't have OneNote.
Right, members, that will come across almost immediately. Thank you very much. If there are no further declarations of interest, we'll move on to agenda item 3, which is urgent business, and I have none. Item 4, which is public speaking time. I don't believe there's anyone registered to speak, but I have said that I will allow Councillor Keane to speak at the beginning of agenda item 5, should she wish to do so. And without further ado, then agenda item 5. Councillor Keane, if you would like to make any statement at this time, you're more than welcome to do so before leaving the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. The matter of the Citizens' Advice was very thoroughly discussed last week. I had thought that Teresa Harvey, the Assistant Director, would be here, but I don't see her on the list of people. She was charged with asking the CEO of Citizens' Advice for some additional information, merely to confirm the probity of the extra money that they were asking. And I'm not aware that the answer has yet come back from them, so it would be quite wrong to predetermine what that might be. I think members are very much aware of what the CAB does with their money and the effectiveness to ordinary people who very often are in great crisis when they go. I have nothing further to add because everything is still fresh in your minds from last week's discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, then we come to agenda item 5, which is the leader's high-level budget strategy. And I'll just point out that this is a strategy with the basics of information in here. It's slightly later than we normally would have had, but I thought in consultation with Mrs. Turner that it would be a good idea to defer it as late as possible to get some information right up to the minute that would help us inform the budget process that we go through. I don't intend to give too much of a description on this. It will go through to Joint Scrutiny Committee after Christmas, and then will be a matter of debate for the full council when it sets the budget. What's before you is a fairly comprehensive report of our current situation and the current situation moving forward, which I have to say given the situation that we found ourselves in this year through no fault of our own, is an entirely positive situation. And I'm grateful for both council officers maintaining the work standards and to members for their support during the last year. Without further ado, I shall hand over to Mrs. Turner, who will go through highlights of the report in order to clarify any areas that you may feel wanting. Mrs. Turner.
Okay, thank you, Leader. Yeah, what was really useful, because we've delayed this until this week, which is just before Christmas. I appreciate that, but we had the settlement figures out last Thursday. So although they're not in the report, updated in the report, I can give you a verbal update on those, and I'll do that as I go through the report, the relevant sections. But as the Leader has said, it's been a very difficult year. It's been a very difficult year, full stop, but also financially. But we are in a position where we're able to present quite a positive picture financially. So that is good. Just going through the report, just to say, I think the recommendations are recommendations to council. So apologies for that. I should have put that on the report. The tax at council is the 21st of February, so that's when all the final decisions are made on in terms of the budget. If I just first of all take you to section 5 of the report, which is where we talk about the COVID pandemic. We have reported during the year the financial impact of COVID, and as the years moved on, obviously those figures have become a bit more accurate. And we've also had funding from the government to assist us with the COVID, the impacts of COVID. In the report, the most up-to-date COVID return was return 7. We actually submitted COVID return 8. I think that was the 11th of December we submitted that. And we also, as part of the financial settlement, we've been told that we'll get an additional grant to deal with the impact of COVID of 686,000. So what that means in terms of the funding gap that we're predicting is that reduces by 45k per annum, which is really positive. We'd already put in terms of our strategy that we would deal with the impact of COVID from specific reserves, so that would have no impact on the medium-term budget going forward. But clearly, the less we've got to take from specific reserves, the more funding we've got to deal with other issues. So that is positive. But we'll continue to update on the impacts of COVID, because as the situation continues, there are clearly going to be more financial implications, and I'm guessing we'll continue to get more funding from government, particularly in terms of impacts on income if we have further lockdowns, etc. The next section I just wanted to highlight was section 10, where we talk about the financial settlement, or the comprehensive spending review, which talks about the financial settlement. Not to go into any detail, but when the detailed figures came out, we're 154,000 better off in terms of the settlement from government in next financial year. So we'll factor that into the figures. Again, positive, but not significant in terms of the impact it has financially. Section 11, where we talk about council tax income, as part of our figures in our modelling, we had assumed that the council tax increase, we would be allowed to go up to £5, and that was confirmed in the settlement figures that we can. So there's no change there, because we agreed that, or anyway, or our figures were modelled on us increasing the council tax, the district council tax, by £5. Then talk about table 5, which is the table with all of the resource bids. Councillor Keane alluded to the bids there for the CAB in the bottom section of table 5. So the first 2 bids are already included in the figures presented. We've got the drainage board levies, which we haven't had confirmation of the exact figures yet, but they're built in there at this stage. We've got the additional funding for the graduate trainees, and also continuation of the apprenticeship programme, and we've assumed there that funding will be from the Community Development Fund, which is one of our specific reserves, and that specific reserve is funded from New Homes Bonus. And then we've got the other resource bids that at this stage we've built into the figures, so we've built them all in, and that's why we've got a funding gap reported at this stage. But what we've said, and part of the recommendation, is that if all of those resource bids are supported at this stage, then we would delegate authority to myself and the leader to agree how those will be funded. So they could be funded from specific reserves, and then that wouldn't have an impact. There wouldn't be a funding gap then if we decided to do that. And clearly, with less money being taken out for COVID, then there is more money available in the specific reserves. So that is certainly a realistic option. And then just finally, just down to table 12, which is the managed use of resources table. Hopefully you will follow me on this. And what that does is just summarise. So the first line is the savings that would be required. And when we talk about smooth savings, that's because we've got the balances far in excess of the 1.5 million to help us balance the budget going forward, which we've used that strategy for several years now. We've got savings required. First line, and that's based on the resource bids being funded from some of the resource bids being funded from reserves. If we fund them from specific reserves, then there wouldn't be a funding gap there. And then we've got savings required for COVID. And as I said, that 87 is reduced by 45k now because of the additional COVID funding we've had in. So again, that was going to be funded from specific reserves anyway. That's it in terms of the figures that I was going to draw out in terms of the presentation. I'll just hand over to Tanya just to summarise in terms of the figures that we're still waiting for, and then happy to answer any questions that members have. Thank you.
Tanya, please.
So as I said, we are waiting. We will be waiting for some extra figures to come through. This is normal at this time of year. So there's 6 main figures that we're waiting for. So the final drainage board levies, and we don't normally get those through till February. The final waste budget, which they have their meeting in January, so we wouldn't get those until then. We haven't had notification of the council tax support admin grant. That doesn't normally come through until a bit later on. One of the big parts of work that needs to be done is the NNDR1 form to work out how much business rates income we'll get in. However, that doesn't have to be completed until the 31st of January, and there's lots of changes all the time to do with business rates at the moment, so we wouldn't anticipate having a final form until right at the last minute, but in case there's any changes. In the leaders high level and medium term financial plan, I've assumed no growth for business rates because of the situation we're in and things slowing down. However, because some of the growth from this year has slipped, I would imagine, and we've achieved the growth target we set, although some of it, the rateable values came in higher than we estimated. I think there'll probably be about 0.5% growth on business rates next year, so that will be built in at tax set when we do the NDR1. We haven't built in any pool dividend for next year yet, although we've been accepted as a pool, and we won't make the final decision about being in a pool until the final settlement, although I would have thought we would carry on being in a pool, so I will build in the dividend then. And likewise with the council tax and business rates likely to both be in deficit this year. We have built figures into the leaders high level and medium term financial plan figures for deficits to happen, so these will either increase or reduce, but at the moment we haven't calculated the final deficit and surplus, sorry, deficit for council tax and business rates, which will be done in January. So those are the 6 things we're major figures that we're waiting for to finalise. So that's it.
Thank you. And I will just say, with regard to the growth bids that are before you today, that I think probably because of our managed use of balances, policy that we've had for a number of years now, and because of the prudent use of balances that we've undertaken in the past, it does actually put us in a position where we can, should we want to, at full council meeting when we set the budget, of providing additional monies in those areas where we feel there will be drains or an upgrade in the work that will be required in certain areas to get us through this pandemic at the moment. So, as I said, we're in a we're in a very good financial position at the moment, which allows us to contemplate these bids, which I would hope members would not object to, and the 151 officer and myself will work out where these monies will come from when we bring the final budget forward. Councillor Caswell.
Thank you, Leader. I'm just a little concerned, really, about the Parish Drainage Board and the AXBRU. They haven't had a meeting yet, so there's no calling in notice yet. But I have a funny feeling it's going to be more than the 16.3%, and it's going to be a bit big, and I mean it a bit big. The problem is that the proverbial problem is that we don't get our councillors there of all descriptions to question the leadership of the drainage board. So I'm glad to hear that Tanya has not yet gone into consultations with the drainage board, but just to flag up, I think it's going to be bigger than 16.3%. And just to sort of say in this meeting that we do need our councillors to be present at drainage board meetings, which is sadly lacking, I can assure you. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, we can only work with the figures that we've got at the moment, and the early indication was from the drainage boards that these were the figures that they were going to move forward with. I don't know whether Doug has got any further information. Doug?
Thank you very much, Leader. Councillor was quite right in terms of the need to get members there, and I think one of the things that Councillor Caswell is certainly going to organise, because he and I have talked through it, is actually calling a number of our members together, as we've done on the barrier recently. No, I don't have any further information about their rise. That you'll recall that last year's rise was significant for the AXBRU, but there was effectively an understanding that there would be a lesser rise this year. Though I have to say the rise is still substantial, whereas we had been pre-warned, although not accepting the rise on the Parrot. But in both instances, as the report very highlights, it does have a substantial budget impact. So with Councillor Caswell, we'll organise a meeting of Drainage Board members to give that emphasis about how important it is to range budget impacts. Meanwhile, I will talk directly to the Chief Executive to express, as I do every year, our grave concern about the budgetary impacts in this year of all years, of course.
Yeah, we have a number of issues this year, which we could do without a last-minute bombshell dropping upon our budget setting. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to ask, say something to Alison first. Thank you very much for keeping the Band Ds down to £5. I'm sure that'll be gratefully appreciated, as parishes are doing something quite different, and that is a great appreciation. But just wanted to ask for clarification, really, on table 11, on the reductions increased income. The waste contract has nothing in it for the 2021-22, and then it's an increase up. Is that in line? Is that an inflationary increase, or is that something else? Excuse me.
Hi, Jill. That's actually a saving. That is when we have the benefits from the new Recyclemore contract. So it's going to be rolled out. I think it's called Recyclemore, isn't it? It's going to be rolled out in the next sort of 18 months or so. And what was agreed, because obviously not everyone can have it rolled out at the same time, is that nobody would get any savings from it until it was completely rolled out everywhere. So that's when the savings start coming in from the waste contract, from the new waste contract.
Thank you very much. My memory was trying to go back to when I was on it, how I could memorize that, but thank you very much for that clarification.
Yeah, so what we're saying there, I believe, is we're not entirely certain of the budgetary demand next year, but we will fairly soon know, I suspect. Is that correct, Mrs. Turner?
In terms of table 11, that's the savings that are estimated. So that's the reduction in the payment that we'd make over for the waste contract. In terms of the figures that we're waiting for next year, is just the final confirmation on what the waste contract figure will be. it doesn't normally change very much at all from now until, well, the final figure we get sort of January, February time. But that's what we're waiting for.
Okay, thank you. Right, members of council, any questions or comments? Councillor Smedley or Councillor Evans? I believe we've got Councillor Bruce with us as well. Any comments or questions? No. Okay. Members of the executive then, any other comments or questions before you? No. In that case, then I'll go back to the recommendations and put them to you. I'm sure they're seconded. And in doing that seconding, Councillor Slocum.
Seconded, Leader, thank you.
Will no doubt remind us that these could all be subject to change as we run through to the final budget setting meeting next year. With that proviso, then I will put the recommendations before you, and if Mr. Melhuish is happy, I will go down the route of, are there any objections or any abstentions to this from the executive members? No, in that case, I'll hand over to Mr. Melhuish to report the result.
Thank you very much, Leader. And that's just to confirm that as no members have voted against or abstained, that is a unanimous decision. So the 6 recommendations before you in the papers will now go forward to the council tax set meeting, and also obviously to the joint overview and scrutiny meeting in early January. Thank you very much. We're just in the process now of making a quick call to get Councillor Keane back onto the meeting so that she can now take part in the remaining 2 items. Back. There we go. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you and welcome back, Councillor Keane. And I'll just make the point that was made during the brief presentation. This is an evolving process, and you can see the timetable for that at 3-1. So that members will be aware as we get further information, it may well alter the budget proposal. So thank you very much. Moving on then to agenda item 6, which is the Housing Revenue Account Business Plan. We're joined by Janet Pascoe. Mrs. Turner, are you going to kick off first or hand straight over to Janet Pascoe?
No, I'm going to kick off very briefly first and then hand over to Janet. So you can see the report in front of you. Again, it's a really positive financial situation. In fact, I have to be honest, when we put these figures together, it was much more positive than we thought in terms of the housing revenue account. We knew that with building in the borrowing from the new build was going to have a positive impact on the business plan, but actually it was far greater than we'd even anticipated. So it is really positive, and it's really, I'm sure Janet will say this when she's presented, but very exciting because there is funding there that gives us a real chance to have some projects in place that will make quite a difference. I just want to draw your attention firstly to the first table, table 1, and what that does is highlight the balances that are available, the revenue balances within the business plan. You'll probably remember not too long ago we were really struggling for the balances to even meet the minimum level of balances that we operate with on the housing revenue account, which for the current financial year run at 713,000, and we were really struggling because we don't want to set a budget that dips below those balances. But with the 1% reduction in the rent for the 4 years, we were really struggling. We had to, reduce the money we were paying in a management fee and significantly reduce our expenditure on several items, but also we had to reschedule the borrowing. At one stage we were only paying the interest on the borrowing and not paying off the principal. But the balances here presented to you in both scenarios include all of the borrowing being paid off within the 30 years of the business plan. It includes quite a significant amount of money for new build, which Janet will go through in a bit more detail in a minute. It includes increases, RPI increases on the management fee, and it includes all of the capital that Homes and Sedgemoor have requested to keep the stock up to decent home standards. So, it is a really positive position. And you can see there, scenario A1 is the scenario, the balances with the growth that's been requested included. And you can see there, at year 1, so the current year, almost 6 million. That is far in excess of the minimum that we're recommending we operate at, which was 713,000. So it does give scope to look at some key projects. What I would say is that the main reason for the more positive presentation here is the fact that the borrowing cap went in 2018. So when we agree, or when you agree, the new build schemes now, part of the model that we put in place for seeing that it's affordable is a provision for paying back the borrowing within 30 years. So every time a new build scheme is put in, we put in the new borrowing. So the new borrowing's in there, but it's in there repaid. So that's freed up quite a lot of revenue, because we were using revenue to fund some of those schemes, but we don't need to use so much revenue now. So that's why the revenue balances are at a position they're at. And it does give quite a lot of scope over the period as the plan. I mean, it is a 30-year plan, and clearly things are going to change and there are some risks, but it is positive. I'll hand over to Janet now, and then I'll just summarise at the end before we go to any questions, if that's okay.
Thank you. Janet.
Okay, thank you very much. What I'm going to talk about is just really some of the major items of expenditure that we have got in the capital plan for the business plan. One of the items that we have in for every single year is the capital investment to keep our stock at decent homes standard. Whilst that was achieved back in 2014-15, it's important that we keep that standard. And what it is, that involves stock condition surveys being carried out to make sure that we know that the stock is at the right standard and what works need to come up. In Appendix C, we've got more detail of what those works actually involve. They're based on the latest information, but Homes in Sedgemoor commissioned another stock condition survey, quite a significant one, and the results of that should be out in like the early part of next year, but a little bit too late for this business plan. So it's likely that we're getting more information on this, but at the moment the stock is kept up to decent home standard. Alison will be touching a bit more on some of the stuff that they hope to do in the future, climate change and so on, shortly. Still keeping on the subject of the work that Homes in Sedgemoor do, within the previous business plan that was agreed a year ago, we had two capital projects, and both of those have been asked as carry forwards, and they are specifically relating to the sheltered housing schemes. Members are probably aware that there's a major review of the sheltered housing element of the housing stock. That's been going on for some time. The main driver for the review was the cessation of significant funding from Somerset County Council, which was called Supporting People. So what's happened is a sort of complete survey and review of that part of the housing stock's been done, and there is a growth bid within the report looking to continue that project so it's rolled out in next year. But the capital carry forwards there relate to upgrading some of the guest bedrooms, well actually so that they become more sheltered housing units. It found that they weren't fit for purpose, and actually we've got a shortage of sheltered housing scheme units, so that's what £140,000 is for. This is mainly a delay caused by COVID-19, but they want to progress with it. And the other carry forward item for the sheltered housing stock was significant remodelling of the sheltered housing communal spaces to bring them up to today's standard, really. Again, delayed because of COVID-19. So the total of those two carry forwards is £290,000. Another item of significant expenditure is disabled adaptations, making sure that our homes are fit for purpose for disabled tenants. Another item that we've got in there is the IT expenditure. Roughly every 10 years, they need significant investment in the IT. So that includes things like the housing rent system and also the system which works on the maintenance for the housing stock. So that's built into the 30-year plan. Another item that members are aware of, it's been like almost a long-term ambition now. It feels long-term in trying to get the estate sewerage schemes up for adoption by Wessex Water. We've still got 3 remaining schemes. A lot of them have successfully been upgraded and adopted, but additional money was required. That was agreed by executive earlier this autumn period. So the plan includes a budget. It's just under £1 million to upgrade those schemes. They're hoping that the Berta one will complete this financial year, and then we've got another 2 schemes which hope that the schemes will start in next year so that they can be brought up to standard and adopted, and then that'd be brilliant. No more estate sewerage schemes. They will be all handed over. The other significant item that we've got within our capital programme relates to developing the stock with regard to new units. So we've got with the authority signed up to keep in part of the right to buy sales receipts a number of years ago, so that we could keep some of the receipt to spend on increasing our stock numbers. So that's been quite successful. We've had 2015-16 was when we started on increasing our stock numbers. That was through buying back old stock, ex right to buy properties, and now we have we've really built on that, and we've got a number of new build schemes in there. We've also gone into Section 106 schemes, so a developer will build the properties and Sedgemoor buys the properties, so they can be let. So these schemes are progressing really well. There's been some slippage on schemes, namely the Sydenham Garage scheme and Penley House, and it's likely that reports will come forward to the executive with revised plans for those, but there are significant housing development schemes in there. Another item within the housing development is a supplementary estimate request. Members are aware, like in the past, we build in a budget for the repurchase of ex-council housing. In the past, this was used to make sure we spent these receipts that I've talked about that we kept from right to buy, because the government sets quarterly targets that we have to spend the receipts by. Otherwise, they go back to the government with interest payments and penalty payments. So because of delays on new build schemes, the housing development team would look to buy ex stock back, but now we're in a position whereby the housing development of schemes is really quite successful, but we still need to continue the purchase of ex council house properties, so that for strategic purposes, so that, say for example, there's a block of flats, there's some leasehold properties that go up for sale, we can buy them back, so that it means that potentially we can develop the whole of that block of flats in the future. So what we're looking at this year is a supplementary estimate of just over £1 million to continue that. And one of the things that we want is the housing development team to look at, what sort of budget do we need permanently in there going forward, so that we continue these strategic purchases. So the other thing on housing development is making sure, picking up from that point, is our housing development team working closely with Homes in Sedgemoor with regard to looking what existing stock we've got, what of that needs significant expenditure in the future, and would those schemes lend themselves to be redeveloped so that we can provide more housing and better housing. So it means potentially some of that budget could be moved from the maintenance budget, capital maintenance budget, into redevelopment of those sites. So that needs considerable work on it. just keeping on the subject of new build development, something that's really positive that was agreed in November this year was Sedgemoor District Council's application to Homes England. So this means that because we were successful, that Sedgemoor can now bid for money from Homes England, which can be used for new housing stock development. So, for example, one of the schemes that is being bid for at the moment is the Big Wood and Staple scheme. So at the moment, it's included in the business plan, but with it all being funded through borrowing. If our application is successful for this bid, then it means that we can have grant funding to help fund this bid, and the rest of it will have to be funded from borrowing, because we can't have, if we've got right to buy receipts, you can't use those for schemes that have Home England's funding. So that's just an aside on the funding side, but it is really, really good news, because it means that if we get significant government grant to invest in new build properties, then that frees up potentially borrowing that we can invest to do even more new build schemes. So as Alison said, it is she said I'd say it is exciting, and just something to pick up on, like when we done the statement of accounts for last year, 2019 was the first year that our stock actually went up at the year end, because as you know, we have right to buy sales, and every year our stock had gradually been diminishing, and last year was the first year where our new build actually managed to creep up above the right to buy sales levels. So hopefully that trend will continue with the way that we've got the new build development built into the plan. So it's exciting. And I will hand you back to Alison on that note. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Janet. Just to summarise then, because I mean it is very good news for the housing revenue account. But section 10 just says in the report, just talks about the key risks. I mean, one of the key risks is the assumptions on rent levels, because we've used CPI for the plan, but as you know, a couple of years ago, or probably longer ago than that, when the government brought in the reduction in rent, that does have a significant impact on the financial position for the business plan. So if the government do decide to do anything on reducing rent, that could have quite a significant impact on the figures. We're in a really good position, so hopefully we'll be able to carry on with our projects, even if there is a impact, but need to be aware of that, I guess. And there are other things that are happening that could impact on the business plan going forward. It's a 30-year business plan, so there are bound to be sort of lots of changes during the course of that. And just section 11, where I talk about the future, we have got considerable balances now to have a look at working with Homes in Sedgemoor. We've got a very close working relationship with Homes in Sedgemoor now, really positive. So hopefully we can get together with Homes in Sedgemoor over the next few months to come up with some projects and initiatives that we can bring back to members to look at things like the climate change agenda and the zero carbon agenda, so greening our stock, which, as Janet said, the stock condition survey data should be available March, April. So hopefully that will help us inform that. Looking at remodelling some of our current stock, which we've already got some plans within our new build to look at that, but sort of on a bigger scale. Looking at the decent home standard that we've got. There's a white paper at the moment in terms of looking at external communal areas and neighbourhoods, and it's likely that something will come out of there in terms of improvements that we need to make in terms of the environmental standards. So again, there could be some projects coming forward on that. And Homes in Sedgemoor are also reviewing their management fee and making sure that they have got the right structure in place and the right resources in place to deliver what we're asking in terms of the management agreement at the performance levels that we're asking. So it may be that they'll come back to us for us to review that management fee in a constructive way. But yeah, it is positive. I mean, Homes in Sedgemoor have also got some balances that they've accumulated. So again, it could be that we could put together some of the balances from here and some of Homes in Sedgemoor's balances to do some exciting sort of joint work projects. So yeah, it is a positive time, and we've actually brought that out in the recommendation. Hopefully members will support the Sedgemoor and Homes in Sedgemoor working close together to come up with some initiatives in terms of utilising the balances that we've got. I don't wish to add anything further, but if anybody's got any questions, then between us, hopefully me and Janet will be able to answer those. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'd just say what an exciting report to have come forward from the housing revenue account, something that we've not experienced for a number of years, and how good it is to have Janet feel so enthusiastic and be so motivated. And I've got to say, it's a great report, and it does bode well for the future. So thank you very much. Are there any members of council who wish to make a comment or ask a question at this time? No, in that case, I'll go to Councillor Healy first, please.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Can everybody hear me okay?
Oh, yes. Yep.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, yes, that was very infectious. That presentation is almost gets you excited, doesn't it? But clearly what's coming over to me, if I may, and I'm looking at both of our non-executive directors, it appears that the not so new chief executive now clearly has made a difference. And I know the leader said a minute ago the close working relationship we've got now. So this clearly, is paying dividends, isn't it?
I think the short answer to that is yes, there is a completely different working relationship between us and Homes in Sedgemoor. There is one of collaboration and working in partnership, and that is to be welcomed. And certainly through the changes in refinancing and other issues, that gives us a great deal of encouragement for the future, and also encouragement to build new homes up to a really modern standard. Also, may have slipped by, but Janet did mention it. The prospect of getting rid of all the pumping stations and septic areas over to Wessex Water is a breath of fresh air. Well, it certainly will be once they get them sorted out for us, because those upgrades to those stations have been a millstone round our neck for many years, and it'll be good to see them completed. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. I would just like to say on Appendix D1, I was so pleased. I mean, I think all the reports have been very, very positive. On D1, it talks about the enhanced void standard, and that's some really good statistics come out of that from residents, how the percentage has risen high, customer satisfaction, everything else. And that is so good to see. And I think this has got to be a congratulations as well, because they haven't been given that much extra, and yet they've managed to do such a lot with it. And I think this is an area where we've always been worrying about this. So I'd just like to thank them very much.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, one of the features of previous business plans that have come forward was a large degree of reserve that was being held back, and now thankfully the light has been seen at the end of the tunnel that somebody can actually use this for the benefit of the residents living in our properties, which is good news. Any other comments or questions? No? Mrs. Turner, anything you wish to add at this point then?
No, thank you, Leader.
Okay, Janet, anything you wish to add?
No, but thank you for asking.
Thank you. And I've got to say, sometimes when you move your head in front of the Christmas tree, a clock appears just above your head. It's really intriguing. But and Councillor Slocum.
I'm sorry, Leader. I just wanted to say to thank Alison and Janet and Joanna and all the team, because I've always said this, I would love them to look after my finances, and I think they do a very, very good job. There's a lot of, this has been a difficult time, and it will be a difficult time because we don't know what's ahead of us, but I'd like to thank them very, very much for the work they do. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that goes without saying, but you've said it, so let's, I'm sure no one would not support that. So thank you very much. Therefore, we come to the recommendations, which Councillor Slocum is frantically waving.
Move the recommendations.
Okay, the recommendations have been moved and seconded. I've got Councillor Gilling. You want to say something before we move to vote?
Indeed, Leader, if I may, I just wanted to endorse what's been said about the growth in our housing stocks. I think a lot of this is down to the supreme efforts that both Duncan Harvey and his team have put into it. Despite the diminished labour staffing levels that they've had at the moment, they've put an Herculean effort to manifest this improvement, and the relationship we've now got with Homes England I think, is down to Duncan and Duncan alone. But nevertheless, I'm also very pleased with our relationship with Homes in Sedgemoor. Everything seems to be working very smoothly on that front.
Thank you. And I will just add that I think it's a team effort right the way across the council that's put us in this position, not least by the efforts of Homes in Sedgemoor. Right. Recommendations are as before you, 5 recommendations. Are there any people who wish to abstain or vote against the recommendations? Please speak now. In that case, then I'll hand over to Mr. Melhuish.
Thank you very much, Leader and members, and pleased to confirm that the 5 recommendations are unanimously carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we come on to agenda item 7, which is linked to agenda item 8. Members should recognise that information in agenda item 8 are just for information, not for broadcast. And if anyone wishes to talk about anything that's within agenda item 8, then we will have to go into exempt session. I don't know whether Mr. Hellard would wish to add anything at this stage.
Took the words right out of my mouth, Leader. Yeah, as you said, we've got an exempt appendix. So if there is to be any discussion of anything in that appendix, then we would need to go into exempt session.
Thank you. Without further ado, then I'll hand over to Councillor Keane.
Are you sure you don't mean Lance Dadridge, because this is not mine? CCTV?
Could be mine, Leader, I think.
Well, in that case, Councillor Dadridge,
yes.
over to you.
Yeah, they actually CCTV and Lifeline have just moved beneath the umbrella of Sedgemoor Digital in customer services. Before it was nestling within or underneath Councillor Keane's umbrella, I think, for a while, and then Councillor Healy's. But just very briefly, we've got Mr. Milton here to take any questions later on, but it's requests for funding to put in place a new contract for VMS and CCTV maintenance. We provide CCTV monitoring not only for Sedgemoor, but for Somerset West and Taunton, and for South Somerset. This contract that we were working under expired, and it's been administered on a sort of ad hoc basis by the previous firm that we were in contract with. This would give us 3 years with a clear contract in place, and as you can see from the report, I think it is something that needs doing to maintain our service. And as we move forward, with, especially with CCTV and indeed Lifeline, once we've reviewed the service, we are looking to move into sort of commercialisation. So there could be a revenue stream there. I'm very happy to take any questions, but as I said, Mr. Milton's also here if people would like to know any more. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Milton or Kerry, either of you wish to pick up at this point?
Okay, thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Dadridge.
Sorry.
Oh dear, we've got Mickey Mouse on the line. Or is it one of the chipmunks?
That's the first ever, Jerry.
Jerry, your audio is very, very poor at the moment, so I don't know if you want to switch the camera off, whether that will help things.
I mean,
no, still not great.
What I will say, I mean, if anyone's read the report, I mean, there are 2 options that are presented: do nothing or to agree to proceed with the contract. If you'd looked at the details of the contract, it does seem a bit of a no-brainer to move forward with the new contract. I don't know whether Lance, you wish to say anything, or Kerry on that.
I'd just like to apologise to Kerry because I didn't realise you joined the meeting. You do have my apologies, otherwise I would have handed over to you. But no, like I said, very happy to take any questions, but I don't think it's an issue that needs too much discussion if members are happy as it is.
Members, are there any comments or questions? No. No. Members of the executive, any comments or questions? No. Mr. Brown, is there anything you wish to say at this point?
Leader, just to say that it's an essential investment into CCTV equipment is to modernise it. The critical issue here is that it's an EU process, hence the reason why we've had to bring it back to you. So there has been a fully supported process that our procurement officer has supported. We've complied with all the regulations. We got authority to go out to contract in the first place, and this is just bringing the results back for you to confirm, and it has been through a full costed and assessed process, and these are just the results. So just to say that you could have confidence in the process that we followed.
Thank you. Should we just go and see if Chip Milton is back?
Chipmunk Milton, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank
Is that
you.
better?
Yes, we can, Davos.
Well, I've got nothing to say now, so it's too bad.
Thanks for coming, Jerry.
I just wanted to just be positive about the service, really, that we've got. I think this is a bit of a turning point for monitoring services. I know I'm bound to say that because they're coming under me, obviously, but I think we do have a stronger management team in place, but I can also see that we've got some business opportunities going forward, and modernising our equipment and building on our relationship with our partners is really a key thing that we're working on at the moment, because I think we do have some exciting opportunities, both in the monitoring services, CCTV, but also in Lifeline. So I'm hoping over the next few months we can develop that a little bit more, but investing in this technology is critical. If you have creaky technology and things are failing, then people lose trust. So I think it's a sound investment in which you can have confidence.
Right, thank you. And I'll just ask Jo if there's anything that she wanted to add into this at all. Sorry, Jo.
No problem at all. Just to reiterate really what Bob said, we've been through a very thorough procurement process. It's taken a lot of time from everybody involved, but I'm satisfied that everything we did is compliant with EU regulations, and we've reached a conclusion which is positive.
Thank you very much. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. I was just, hearing what Bob had said particularly as well. Now, Jerry, it's brilliant. Just wanted, was very happy to second the recommendation after Councillor Duddridge, of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Duddridge.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I'd just like to record thanks, well, certainly from myself, but probably from everybody here, to our frontline staff that be working over Christmas Day, the whole bank holiday, people in CCTV and monitoring services. It's part of the fact they do a vital job. It's the public face of the council, and I think we'll pass on our thanks to them for sacrificing their turkey and goodness knows what for the good of the community.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those sacrifices of the boxes of sweets, which we normally take into the CCTV room, where we're going to be unable to do so this year, but our thanks do go to them. Right, the recommendation is before you to award the contract to Computerised and Digital Security Systems Limited. Are there any abstentions or people who wish to vote against the recommendation? Please speak. No, therefore, Mr. Mel Hewish, give the result of the Bridgewater and Sedgemoor jury.
Thank you very much, Leader. Members, I'm pleased to confirm that the recommendation to award the contract to the company named in the reports is unanimously carried. Thank you.
Thank you. As you will have seen, the Chief Exec is just going to give an announcement, but prior to that, I will just say thank you very much for being here today. I do hope you get a bit of rest and a bit of quiet over Christmas, and I look forward to welcoming you back in the new year. So I declare the meeting closed.